Okay. Good day. Good morning, everyone. I'm Dalai Felinto. This is the talk that had no description in the program, but we're basically going to be talking about stereoscopic 3D. Stereoscopic 3D, we know all these anaglyph glasses when you go to the cinema, or the polarized ones, or the anaglyph glasses we can have for cheap 3D, which basically allows you to see two images, one for each eye, but when they're both projected on the screen at the same time. I'm not going to be talking about how to make nice 3D. I'm not going to be talking about the technology behind stereoscopy itself. That's a whole subject on its own. Last year, people presented here at the Blender conference about that. There are tons of books. But I'm going to talk about about my work on implementing stereoscopic support in Blender. Not as an add-on, not as a patch only, but as a branch that can eventually be merged into Blender. Also going to be talking very fast because we don't have a lot of time. So if you don't understand, just make sure it's clear so I can go slightly slower. For me, stereoscopic 3D has been fascinating since I was very young. I remember when I first saw it was a hummingbird, one of these images that you had to stare at for a few minutes before getting something out of it. Probably that's why I had to wear glasses later on, but was totally worth it. I still like 3D. And if you think about years later, nowadays 3D is everywhere. Have some like crappy movies like Piranha 3D, which I watched. To actually really good ones, Avatar that everyone nowadays talks was really a landmark on the 3D cinema. But then Hugo Cabret for me was one of the most beautiful movies I watched in 3D, and more recently Epic from Blue Sky Studio, also fantastic experience. But 3D is not only movies, 3D is everywhere. You can see on the second floor people are demoing the Oculus Rift, this whole immersive technology. There are people with cell phones that can actually show 3D. We have the 3DS from Nintendo. So even though it has always been a commodity, something you can watch in a carnival, you can go to the amusement park to see, but we also have a consistent, constant trend in the industry. We have PlayStation 3 supporting it and so on and so on. So it might as well be time for Blender to support it, why not? On my personal background, I've been always a fan of niche technology, let's put it this way. I've been working since 2009 with domes and panoramas. Domes are like planetariums. We get to see a whole environment inside your field of view. It's really cool to play with. And because of this work, I had a chance last year to go to be in Brazil working on research on panorama. Out of curiosity, the carpet, the balls, and the objects are all rendered with Lux Render, a special branch. And the environment is captured. We actually presented that last year in a few conferences, including the Blender conference, and in the end of the year at SIGGRAPH Asia. During the SIGGRAPH Asia, I actually had a chance to watch this fantastic workshop from Vladimir Sierra. He worked as a stereographer for Tinkerbell 3D. He did the whole stereography pipeline for Disney. The movie I haven't actually watched it, but the 3-4 hours of the workshop was with one of these 3D glasses where he would actually show and tell the difference between having a camera rotating or panning around, and actually be able to put the glasses and see it. And what was very clear from that workshop is that 3D, a good stereoscopic experience, goes way beyond just rendering two cameras and making sure they converge. The whole science and the whole art behind this. Since it's already so complicated to start, we should really put effort on all the tools to actually make it easy for artists to make a nice 3D. At the same time, in the same conference, it's not mine. In the same conference, I got to meet personally Paul Burke, which is a dome specialist. I have collaborated with him before. The image you see here is a file I got from LensSwap, but it's rendered in cycles with the fisheye lens. It's there also thanks to Paul Burke because of our original collaboration project. And since I was with this whole 3D in my mind, I was wondering, hey Paul, how can you have dome and 3D? Is that doable? Is that something that makes sense? And even though his original thought is it doesn't make a lot of sense when you have domes, you don't want any gears, any gadgets, sure, we can do it. So he showed me his paper, he explained me his technique to do that, and then during the conference itself, I was doing some Blender coding. And actually, you need anaglyph glasses to see that, but actually it's possible, it's there, and so I made a nice patch. It was fun to play with, and I said, how can I have this in Blender? Well, DOM is a niche on its own. To have DOM in 3D, while Blender doesn't even have 3D, would be a little bit, would be to ask too much from the other users to say, what the heck, why Dalai wants that inside Blender? So I thought I might as well have 3D for Blender, and then once the whole 3D for Blender is implemented, I go there and push once again the DOM and 3D support. So just so you understand a little bit the reasoning behind why do I bother working with 3D. But as I said, it's not only the mathematics. You don't need just a quick hack to put together two images. When I was talking with Tom about this whole idea of working with 3D in Blender, and we know that a lot of people have been using it, having been doing that in the past, different workflows, different hacks here and there. He said that, sure, we definitely can have that in Blender. There's demand for these. Well, in this conference, we saw a few works that were presented that we're doing with a stereoscopic pipeline. But we need a very nice, well-put proposal. It's not some quick hack. So and I think that's actually quite interesting if you think about this whole UI discussion and how those features get in Blender. Actually, I didn't want to do on my own the whole thing on how we can actually get the perfect workflow for that. So I actually teamed up with Francisco City, who is walking around all the time helping us at the conference. And he actually wrote a book on 3D cinematography. And he was interested in helping, interested in tests. At that time, they were doing Caminandes 1. They wanted to use 3D stereoscopic in Caminandes 1. So we came up with a nice proposal, put on the Blender list, and that wasn't enough. It's funny, even two people with a different background sitting up together, we cannot consider all the different needs that people might have. So the first thing that we heard that, sure, stereoscopic is nice, but you do need the freedom to have any camera, 2 cameras, 4 cameras. There are people using these Auto 3D displays that require 80, sometimes 200 renders of the same scene. There are people that re-render Big Bang Bunny that could definitely use this pipeline as long as we don't constrain these to pure stereoscopic dual camera. So we sat back and say, okay, let's rethink this a little bit further. So first we want a fully integrated solution. You don't want a quick patch or hack here and there. You want something that you can render, you can composite, you can use the sequencer, you can view in the 3D viewport, you can save it out, you can open up. So as a whole, you want to take one that touching all parts of Blender. We also would rather address the professional audience. A lot of people start with Blender as a hobbyists, and they still can use it. They're going to have a great time. But right in the beginning, there are people wanting for us to prioritize like anaglyph glasses over a better 3D display that might be a bit more pricey. And I would rather say we're gonna make sure we support both of them, and we're gonna make sure that the professional ones, they're really nice to use, and you can use the anaglyph one. Other than say, let's make sure the anaglyph is the one we really want to have it, and the other ones is we don't care. So in a way, it's kind of the paradigm we're going for. And even though you want to focus on professional users, you want to also make sure it's very easy to set up. So if you have an existing animation scene, you have one button, you click it, whoa, it's already in 3D. Of course, then your work starts to make it a nice 3D, but you want to make it simple. And as I was saying, the whole pipeline we're calling Multiview because you can have actually even more than 2 cameras. But as you might have known, might have seen in the industry, they're not only 3D stereoscopic displays. So a 3D stereoscopic displays like the display we have on the second floor. Have seen, you can put the glasses and see in 3D. Basically, we're feeding 2 images to the display, and you get a nice image. But there are a whole other range of devices that allow you to have sometimes 9, sometimes 6 point of views where you don't need glasses. You can actually have an auto stereoscopic. And we support them in terms of rendering, but not in terms of visualization. First, because not a lot of people have these devices. And second, because there's no standard in the industry yet. So I was actually last summer in Vancouver in this display expo week, and I was asking one of the guys in the booth, say, how can I support all of them? How is Maya doing? How is the industry dealing with this situation? And just he told me, Dalai, a little piece of advice, don't tell it anyone. Well, I'm telling, but I don't even remember his name. Just wait 3 to 5 years for Philips and LG to take over the market. So all you need is to support 2 main companies, and that's all. So, yeah, it makes sense. It's a sad future, but that's what's going to happen anyways. So for now, we're focusing on 3D displays. And then it starts the whole GitHub journey. We have all the work that we have been doing since May being shared online. Some people are testing. As you can see on the bottom of the page, from time to time, we even bother providing builds for Mac and Windows and Linux. It's documented, people can find out how to test. But it's a lot of work to do, and I'd like to actually explain what's done and what's yet to be done over there. So there are basically 4 stages into implementing 3D support in Multiview support in Blender. The first one is a more or less glorious work. It's pretty much taking the whole Blender internal code and make sure it doesn't make a lot of assumptions that we have only one camera and that you can only, and because Blender is all optimized currently to this monoscopic pipeline. So, and the internal work would also means you'll be able to open a 3D image, see in 3D, have different display modes. I'm going to show it briefly. That's all done and implemented. It's working fine, I would say. A second stage is to take 2 cameras, 2 existing cameras, set up in the scene, and be able to use them to a 3D pipeline. So if you think about yesterday, the team that was showing the glass explosion in stereoscopic, basically they had a whole footage made with real cameras, and they wanted to do the VFX of the shot. If they take their file, which they didn't have with them, otherwise I was going to show here. If they take their file and just put it on the branch and just set up the scene in 1 minute, they can just see their whole work in 3D. And otherwise, and the way they're doing, they need to render, look at way after, go to the special station, go back to Blender, tweak something, and then go back and forth. So take 2 random cameras. If you're doing VFX, that's mostly what you're going to do. If you have an entire animation pipeline, you want to have 1 camera, and you want to be able to animate this 1 camera parameters. Basically, that means you can play with the eye separation or with the convergence distance. These are known terms for stereography. Just go look for them. And that means you can play with the scale of the scene and adapt perception, the depth budget, the depth first one. So it should be very easy to use. You should be able to see in the 3D view the cameras. We are halfway on this third target. Yeah, pretty much most of the code is there. Just the math is still not done, it's just some pseudo code. Might be done soon. And usability, a word we are using so much to talk about Blender nowadays. Basically, we don't really want to play with these technical parameters, eye separation, plane distance. When you're actually working a real production, most of the time you have the director that goes scene by scene, and with the stereographer, you're going to draw the depth script. As you have the color script, you can have the storyboard. You also have a scene by scene or a per project evolution of how is the depth effect is going to work with the movie. If you have a more intimate scene you might want, you can actually work with, I think they do small depth. If it's a very distant scene, you can have a longer depth, if it's action, if it's not. But anyways, the point is we have to be able to control, to have a directable experience, an artistic experience to play with 3D, play with depth. It cannot be pressing buttons and try to guess how's that going to work. Going to the specifics. So the first I was saying, internal work. A lot of the things just invisible. There's not a lot to show. What I call the ninja style. Just sit there in the dark room and make things. The second is the OpenEXR, which is a known format in the 3D industry. Since its recent version 2.0 does support Multiview as part of their specification. So you can have one single file which has 2 images on its own. You can actually have the right, you can have the left, you can even have other views on the same file. So we're entirely benefiting from this open source standard. And the first thing I did was actually to support the OpenXR. And stereo system, which are the different stereo modes. I briefly show the anaglyph classes, which work by filtering out the image that goes for each eye based on a color filtered. We have a polarizing that does similar work. We have we call active system with this shuttering glasses. Now we have Oculus Rift. So there are different technologies out there, and it'd be nice to support all of them. So let's start actually by. I'm going to start by listing actually the different different stereo modes. Huh? Any question? Dr. Epilepsy is a internal name. It might change at some point. I can actually show you. Let me show this. Start showing the Dr. Epilepsy. Seriously, does anyone have any chance of epilepsy? If you do, please do not see it. Same for the internet, and that's real because some people they do have epilepsy. So this is a blend file. Oh, you don't see because it's in my screen. Okay. No, hold on. Okay. Okay. So these are blend 5 different images. I'm gonna show here I can set up your screen. I guess you can't see me neither. Let's show the other epilepsy. Oh God. Yeah. So this is a way to give you 3D without any gadget, any device. And I can actually set up the speed and all that. Yeah. So this was for Caminandes 1. They were trying some stereoscopic as well. I believe if I increase the interval ratio, it's kind of looks more 3D or more dizziness. Yeah. I don't even know if other softwares they have these. I don't really care. Just I mean, you can have it. These are all OpenXR samples. So OpenXR itself provides some images so you know whether or not you're supporting them properly. Just for the record, this is Kiribati, is from the Argentina team. The TD, Gabriel Carabecho, he actually got hold of the branch last Wednesday, and that's in 2 days he rendered this nice image already in 3D. He has a 30 frames animation also rendered, which I won't be able to show. So it's very quick to start working on it. Let's go back to here. Just the modes quickly going over them. We have anaglyph, that's the most famous one. But even when it comes to anaglyph, we have different techniques we can use. So each glass, you have a red and cyan, we have magenta and green, and we have yellow and blue here. Another very popular one is interlace. The monitor we have over there, it works with interlace. Interlaced means that, for example, the horizontal interlace means that each line of the display is going to be seen by one eye. So we're losing half resolution when you're doing it, but that's life. That's what you have. And then we have different interlacing format encodings. Let's say you can have a horizontal, vertical, or they call checkboard, which they just alternate. The other modes are side by side and top bottom, which it might not matter much, but for instance, it's important to know what's your display. If your display actually has horizontal interpolation, horizontal interlation, you don't want to do vertical, you don't want to do side by side as your format, because if you do it, we're losing half of the horizontal resolution, and we're losing half of the vertical resolution because of the display. So in this case, you probably want to do top bottom as your regular format. But I met people that actually, they prefer to use the side-by-side with linear interlaced displays. So you kind of are losing half resolution here and losing half resolution here, so it kind of looks okay. They prefer to compromise on both directions than to have a nice vertical lines and bad. Anyways, it's a bit too specific, sorry. Multiple cameras. So this first thing is already there. You can download, you can test, you can play for home for anaglyph classes. Multiple camera. That includes UI, viewport, render, compositing, sequencer. Probably have forgot something else, but that's the basic core of the Blender functionality. So you can animate, you can sculpt, you can texture paint all in 3D if it comes to that. The main control is on the render panel, just besides the view, the passes and layers. You can just go and turn views on. View by default will be off. And we start from left and right. But let me open a file here. But you can add as many files as you want, as many cameras as you want. I don't see anything, do you? I get another file. There's a simple file here. 1, 2, this one. I still don't see much, but anyways, here I actually illustrate a bit more. Here, the views. So we have the left and right, and you can also create new ones. I can call anything, center. You pick the camera you want to use, and then when you render it, you're going to have all of them available to you. Yeah. Anyways. So it's a flexible system. It's built to work well with left and right, but pretty much to be flexible. You also should support that in the viewport. We do. You can actually play with different devices. It's not supported yet, but you should have a plan, volume, the multiple camera system feasible. And when it comes to compositing, there are a few tricky things because sometimes you do want to do a per eye adjustment. So sometimes you have your left and your right eyes that need a different color treatment or what's not. So for example, on the sample file here. So here we have a file. I'm just gonna render. Because of the, okay, let me remove this mode here, just a second. Back to interface, okay. Okay. So here we rendered left and right. We rendered left and right, but each of them had a different color treatment. So for now, let me, yeah. So basically, I mean, the functionality itself you can find in the branch. I'm not going to go over that, but just to have an example here on the same render layer, we want to have a different mix for the left and the right eye. And if you're doing compositing in Blender, you should know that the whole tree evaluates from the right to the left. So what we have here is a switch viewer. The same way as in Blender and Trunk, we have the switch node, which can turn on and off one of the branches. Here, when the composite is doing the left eye, it's going to read from these. When it's doing the right eye, it's going to read from these. Whenever the tree gets to the original render layer, the render layer knows whether you're rendering each view and then can give it away. I've been talking about stereo and multiview, so just as an example here, you have left and right, but if I create a new view here, oh wait, Blender conference. And then go here and update. We get another view over there. So it's manual update because you don't want to have destructive actions on the Blender, on the node tree, but we can pretty much work with as many views as you want. Yeah. Unfortunately, sequencer is not done because at that time someone was working on the sequencer for the Google Summer of Code, and they just said, you know, a lot of code might change. You might as well just wait for it. So I'm still waiting. I don't know if the project went anywhere. So right now we cannot really see videos or anything. That doesn't matter. Now the thing I told you was a bit unimplemented. There are basically two parameters you want to set. I said interocular convergency. If you, for example, if you go to if you go to the 3D viewport here, and if you had, better here, take here the left one. Each camera also has a stereoscopic camera selector. 3 minutes. Okay, 1 minute to go. Well, But that's, as I said, we can play with these parameters. You're going to see the result in real life without having the need of 2 cameras. And at some point, you're going to also be able to control these on a top level. As a final slide, I'd just like to share that currently I have no time to work on this branch anymore, which means I might only resume working in January or something. But we're discussing with other interest parties if there are other ways of getting that finished. Maybe there's enough interest on other projects to get this funded further, because so far I've been working on my own. I don't mind having a 3D display to work on at home. Maybe, for example, Kiribati, the project in Argentina, the TD is interested on keeping developing that further, so maybe he will jump in and finish the project. We don't know yet, but we'll see. Thank you very much. Thanks for... Thanks for Francisco Sede, Alexei Yaxin, Bracht van Lego, Blender developers, Robert Wittel, Cameron Z, artist, Kiribati, Mike Penn, Bataz Studio. Questions we do elsewhere because I think someone else is coming. Sorry for... Sorry for taking some of your time.